When I first met Evan Wilson, he was 8 years old and I was 6. After being abandoned by his adoptive parents, he kept pretending he still had a family. During early winter, wearing ill-fitting summer clothes and carrying his school bag, he'd call out to the empty cottage, "Mom, Dad, I'm off to school." Grandma Lee noticed his predicament and brought him home. Normally I would have resisted. Her earnings from the vegetable stall barely sustained the two of us. But this time I agreed immediately. Evan was the stolen child of the wealthy Wilson family, and his biological parents would come for him in a year. I needed their resources to save Grandma from her impending illness, though I vowed not to marry him this time around. "Ivy, you're really okay with this? You were protesting earlier." Grandma's voice brought me back to 1990. There stood Evan at our door, with chapped cheeks from the cold and his stomach growling audibly. I nodded. Grandma happily pulled him inside and started cooking noodles. Evan pressed his lips together. "My parents went to the city to earn money." "That's why." "They're not your parents," I interrupted bluntly. "You were bought. Now they have their own son and left you behind." His small fists clenched, his face flushing crimson, tears welling but never falling. Even at 8, ragged and hungry, Evan maintained his fa.A. He'd been trafficked as an infant. His adoptive parents had treated him decently until their biological son arrived, after which they relocated to the city. Every day Evan waited at the village entrance, loudly declaring to passers-by, "Mom's buying me candy. We'll walk home together." Villagers smiled but never contradicted him. In my previous life, I'd carefully preserved his dignity, chasing off bullies with brooms. But now, armed with painful memories, I stripped away his illusions. In the last timeline, after the Wilsons reclaimed him, Grandma fell ill. 2 years later when she died, Evan took me to the Wilson estate. He became my sole anchor, and I his constant shadow. Years later he'd tell his parents, "Ivy has no family. I want to take care of her." But when proposing marriage, calculation filled his eyes. His brother Eric Wilson outshone him in every aspect: poise, academics, social graces. Having returned to the family at 10, Evan could never measure up. Gradually, he manipulated his kind-hearted parents, who often mused, "If not for Grandma Lee's compassion, you'd have frozen to death. If only you could marry Ivy, your children would be exceptional." Within a year of our wedding, his virtuous diligence contrasted sharply with Eric's corporate ruthlessness. The Wilsons eventually handed him the company. Drunk, he'd sneer, "I never loved you." The marriage was to please them. Once firmly established, he bulldozed my ancestral Lychee Mountain for a resort, the burial ground of my parents and grandmother. "How could you?" I'd screamed. "Grandma loved you." He sneered. "Ivy, your grandmother raised me as your safety net, wanting some man to care for you after she died." "That's not true," I'd countered. "She lived her whole life in the village. She wasn't some schemer." The elder Wilsons tried intervening but by then held no influence. Now, staring at this shivering 8-year-old version of Evan, I hardened my resolve. This time, everything would be different. He snorted coldly. "Don't be naive. Who helps others without an agenda? Your Grandma Lee won her gamble. Not only did I take good care of you, but I also became wealthy. If you do the math, you're the ones who profited. You housed me for less than a year, while I've supported you for over 2 decades. Watching Evan employ his tactics against me, I released my grip on his shoulder and demanded a divorce. He lazily smoothed the wrinkled fabric where I'd clutched him. "Fine. Our marriage was transactional anyway. But where will you go after this? Do you even have a home?" "Oh right, that dilapidated village of yours. Everyone there is as rotten as the traffickers who took me, including you and Grandma. Know why you've never conceived? I refuse to let my child carry that village's tainted blood." He believed that if not for our village's human traitors, He'd still be the admired second son of the Wilson family. On our last night as husband and wife, I dragged my abused body through the rain to our leaking ancestral home, clutching the emergency contraceptive he'd thrown at me. As spring thunder rumbled outside, the crumbling house collapsed around me. After a surge of pain, I awoke back to this moment. Evan, eat while it's warm. Grandma's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She set a bowl of plain noodle soup before Evan. Provoked by my earlier words, he shoveled the food into his mouth with trembling hands. Slow down. Evan, you'll burn yourself. Grandma fretted softly. At her kindness, Evan ducked his head lower, sniffling as he nodded. I watched coldly, suppressing my emotions. This time, I'd use the Wilson family as my stepping stone. Only by gaining power could I protect what mattered. After the meal, Grandma brought out the coal stove we rarely used, placing precious honeycomb briquettes inside. This'll keep us warm tonight. She smiled as flames began glowing through the grate. From that day, Evan became our permanent guest. His adoptive parents had left him nothing but a wooden plank bed. That night, I clung to Grandma like ivy. Ivy, why the death grip? Miss your old grandma? She chuckled, patting my back. Hold me tight while I still smell like fresh ginger. When I'm ancient and musty, you'll regret it. I tightened my embrace, remembering how she died before her hair whitened in my previous life. How I'd failed to protect her burial mountain. As Grandma's soft snores eventually lulled me to sleep, I vowed this timeline would be different. 2 months into Evan's stay, his recurring fevers turned dangerous. Grandma carried him through midnight roads to the county hospital, spending our meager savings on his treatments. Though I longed to protest, I knew her compassionate nature. His body's weak from years of neglect, he needs proper nutrition. She insisted, making increasingly frequent trips to the county market despite her own failing health. Watching her shoulders bend under the carrying pole each dawn, I resolved to accelerate my plan. The next morning, I followed Grandma's departing silhouette before turning toward the Wilson family's factory on the city outskirts. After hitching rides for 3 hours, I arrived as a black Santana sedan pulled through the gates. Pretending to collect scrap paper, I lingered until a woman's voice asked, "Child, why are you out here in the cold? Where's your family?" I looked up at Mrs. Wilson, my future stepping stone glowing like coal embers in winter. My grandmolly went to the market, so I came to collect cardboard to sell for money. You're so young to wander this far alone? I sniffled and nodded. I can't find my way home. Then I burst into tears, betting their kindness would make them help me. True enough. Mrs. Wilson immediately crouched down to pat my head. Don't cry. Where's your home? We'll take you back. Lishan Village. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson exchanged glances. Mr. Wilson spoke first. Let someone drive her back. I need to get to the factory. Mrs. Wilson nodded and called into the workshop. A man walked out. Little one. Hill, before she finished. I clutched her sleeve and hid behind her, trembling dramatically. I want you to take me. You smell nice. Not like bad people. Mrs. Wilson paused, then laughed. Such strong street smarts for a peanut. All right. I'll take you myself. When we reached my rundown farmhouse at dusk, Grandma Lee hadn't returned yet, and Evan was nowhere to be found. Mrs. Wilson waited with me a while before leaving $20 on the table. I chased her to the yard, desperate to stall until Evan returned. When she insisted on leaving, I blurted, "Auntie, do you have 2 sons?" Her hand froze on the car door. How did you know? There's a boy in our village who was kidnapped as a baby. He looks just like you. Her expression hardened as she glanced at our crumbling house. Listen, it's okay to ask for help, but don't make up stories. I shook my head frantically. It's true. Mrs. Wilson stormed inside and grabbed a yellowed newspaper. Scammers keep sending fake clues about my son to extort money. The wrinkled missing person notice showed her family photo. We never bought newspapers. Grandma Lee only saved discarded ones in the woodshed for recycling. This particular page shouldn't exist in our house. Never lie again. She began sternly. Then froze mid-sentence. Following her gaze, I saw Evan running home with 2 tomatoes. Auntie. I'm not lying. I whispered. Ivy. Got tomatoes for dinner. Evan handed me the produce. Mrs. Wilson suddenly yanked his collar open. Seeing the birthmark on his neck, she crushed him in a hug. Let go. Who are you? I'm your mother. Evan stopped struggling. When she released him, I said, Evan, you look exactly like her. He'd kept his birth name Lee Yuan before adoption. He shoved her away. You're not my mom. Then glared at me. Ivy. Can't wait to get rid of me? Before storming inside, Grandma Lee returned as Mrs. Wilson explained everything. Eventually, Grandma convinced Evan to give a hair sample for DNA testing. After Mrs. Wilson left, Evan Wilson finally emerged from the kitchen with 3 bowls of tomato noodles. I took a bite, and the familiar taste flooded my senses. Many childhood memories from my previous life had faded. Yet I vaguely recalled that Evan hadn't known how to cook noodles as a boy. You know how to make noodles? I blurted out. Evan nodded. It's Christmas Eve. Since we don't have apples, tomatoes will have to do. Ivy. Come to town with me tomorrow for Christmas. His commanding tone felt hauntingly familiar. In our past life, we'd only started substituting tomatoes for apples during our second Christmas together due to poverty. This tradition had continued through our marriage. Yet now, this ritual had arrived a year early. Grandma Lee fished coins from her pocket. You youngsters go enjoy those foreign holidays. This old lady won't cramp your style. I stole glances at Evan calmly slurping his noodles. The crumpled newspaper on the table and these particular noodles, could he also have been reborn? If so, why would he stay in this village he'd always despised? To find answers, I accepted his invitation while refusing Grandma's money. We don't need cash for sightseeing. I lied, secretly fingering the $20 Mrs. Wilson had given me. At dawn, Evan had breakfast ready when Grandma left for work. After forcing down pancakes, he dragged me out. Why so early? The Christmas market's at night. His eyes sparkled. You'll see. He pulled me toward Riverbend Street's wholesale market. Loading up on Christmas cards, Santa hats and sparklers. We're going downtown tonight to make money, he announced. Watching him haggle like a seasoned businessman, I glimpsed phantom images of him in tailored suits negotiating boardroom deals. My suspicion solidified. He definitely remembered our past life. Why work so hard? I wondered aloud. The Wilson family could give him everything, especially after that missing person notice in the paper, yet he pushed Mrs. Wilson away. Ivy, he suddenly vowed. I'll earn enough to take you and Grandma traveling. We'll visit Lincoln Avenue in Winnetka. My breath caught. That street from Home Alone, our childhood favorite we'd watched at the video shack. I'd once wistfully mentioned wanting to live in those Oakline suburbs. And teen Evan had promised to take me there. He'd fulfilled that in our previous life, though by then his corporate duties left little time for family. Winnetka? I feigned ignorance. Never heard of it. Evan froze, then recovered. Nothing. You'll understand later. Downtown Shanghai glittered that night like spilled stardust. Restaurants blazed with Christmas trees and twinkle lights, their packed dining rooms contrasting sharply with our sleepy village. After settling me on a park bench, Evan shouldered his merchandise and melted into the festive crowd, his silhouette momentarily overlapping with that boardroom executive from my memories. Most visitors at the street fair were families of 3. Seeing how young Evan Wilson was, People willingly bought his goods. Soon, Evan stuffed a wad of cash into my hand. "Returning your 20. Keep the rest for me." I checked my pocket and realized my missing $20 bill he'd stolen from me. Even Reborn, he couldn't kick this bad habit. The money in my palm now included an extra 10. "Don't steal from me again," I said firmly. Evan scratched his head. "I won't. I just needed seed money this time." I met his gaze. "That wealthy lady last week looked just like you. Once the paternity test comes back, your life will be easier." Evan's youthful face darkened. "Are you that eager to get rid of me?" His intense stare unsettled me. But I held firm. "She's your mother. You belong with her." Our standoff lasted until Evan looked away. "Even if she is, I'll make my own way." I almost laughed. How could this child, despite being reborn, achieve anything? In this golden era of opportunity, two academically challenged kids stood little chance. Street vending required startup capital, and exhausted commuters weren't reliable customers. Inheriting the Wilson family fortune would be smarter. Their hourly earnings dwarfed Evan's $10 profit. "But if you want me to go, I will," Evan suddenly said seriously. Resting my chin in my hands, I feigned innocence. "You'd get daily steak dinners, Evan. But who'd play with me then?" His laughter rang out. "Ivy, your meat cravings. Let's go buy some." I suppressed my discomfort as he dragged me to the butcher shop. Our hands linked, while awaiting the DNA results. I trailed Evan like before. His sudden entrepreneurial drive puzzled me. But my mission stayed clear: let him take me to the Wilson family, save their allowances, and prepare for 1998's opportunities. This time, I'd amass more wealth than he ever had, protecting what mattered without falling for his false kindness. The Wilson elders wouldn't face corporate humiliation in their twilight years again. A week later, car tires crunched on gravel outside Grandma Lee's house. I sprinted out to see Mr. and Mrs. Wilson unloading luxury gifts from their trunk. "Grandma Lee, Mrs. Wilson began, these tokens can't express our gratitude for saving our son." Grandma started her customary refusal, but I intercepted the presents. "They'll feel bad if you decline, Grandma." Mr. Wilson nodded vigorously. "Name anything within our power, it's yours." "Now where's?" I found Evan crouched by the kitchen hearth. "Evan, your parents are here." He turned slowly, firelight dancing on his face. "Ivy, do you truly want me gone?" When I stayed silent, he pleaded, "Let me stay. I'll provide for you both." His desperate eyes shocked me, such contrast from his previous life's triumphant departure. Why this sudden change? Last time he'd left eagerly. When exactly did he return through Rebirth? Or was it after the old house collapsed that he experienced some major upheaval? I pinched my thigh, reminding myself this wasn't the time for such thoughts. Forcing a bright smile, I said, "Ev, if you can't bear to leave us, I could accompany you back. Just don't find me bothersome. Deal?" Evan Wilson agreed without hesitation. "Really, Ev? Having Ivy with me makes everything less frightening. Besides," his eyes softened, "if Ivy wants me to return to the Wilson family, I will." I nodded emphatically. A flicker of disappointment passed through Evan's bright gaze before vanishing. He sighed and extended his hand. "Come. Let's go meet this birth mother of mine." In the main hall, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson watched expectantly as Evan approached. Tilting his head up at them, he declared, "Come get me tomorrow. I want Ivy to come too, she'll attend school with me." His tone held zero inflection. The Wilsons readily agreed, even offering to bring Grandma Lee to the city, just an extra plate at the table. As Mrs. Wilson put it, Grandma refused relocation but shocked me by approving my move to the Wilson household, her first voluntary acceptance of others' goodwill in living memory. After the Wilsons left, Evan went to feed the chickens as usual. No triumphant announcements about his parents' arrival like last lifetime. Grandma tried packing our belongings, but I stopped her. The Wilsons have everything. Frowning at our threadbare clothes, she suddenly darted out. I shrugged and found Evan by the coop. "Here, chickie, chickie," he called cheerfully, scattering grain. Spotting me, he grinned. "Promise me something, Ivy?" "Sure. Stay with me no matter how I change." How long is no matter? I almost sneered internally. This Evan was just my stepping stone. Outwardly, I beamed, of course. "Remember this vow, Ivy." Oh, I'd remember. Just like he'd remembered his childhood oath to protect me. Promises meant nothing once power and wealth entered the picture. Grandma returned after dark with 2 mended outfits. Last lifetime, she'd traded precious eggs for second-hand clothes Evan discarded immediately. Now, watching her reinforce buttons under dim lamplight while Evan slept, I accidentally kicked him. TSK. Restless child, Grandma muttered. By morning, the Wilsons' sedan waited outside. I slipped $1,000 into Grandma's bundle with a note: "Get full medical checkups or I'll never visit. Save all test results and prescriptions, I'll verify. Ivy." As the car pulled away, Grandma shrank in the rear view until disappearing. This time, we'd rewrite everything. During the ride, Evan kept fidgeting. "What's wrong?" "Sore." I stifled a laugh and looked out the window. After coming to the Wilson family home, Eric Wilson remained as aloof as ever. He briefly greeted me and then retreated to his room to study. The following days were spent waiting for school to start. During this period, Evan would bring every new treasure he acquired straight to my room. "Ivy, check out this scooter. Let's go play in the yard." The childhood treats I'd never experienced before now seemed underwhelming. The chocolate milk tasted like watered-down nostalgia. "Ivy, let's try this Tamagotchi together. These light-up sneakers are cool. Let me help you put them on." Arriving 2 years earlier at the Wilson household brought few changes beyond experiencing toys and snacks from this timeline. After school started, both Evan and I skipped multiple grades due to our retained memories and consistently ranked top in academics. The Wilson parents were overjoyed, and Grandma Lee regained her health through early medical intervention I facilitated. At family gatherings, Evan no longer vied for attention when Eric received praise. His demeanor grew more reserved than even Eric's had been, though he still chased off my suitors with familiar determination. When the pivotal moment came at 22, Evan proposed without his previous affectations. Though less ambitious, preferring leisure over corporate responsibilities, he still commanded his parents' admiration by solving business crises using future knowledge. My own assets now dwarfed the Wilson fortune, built through strategic investments in the '98 World Cup and tech stocks using childhood allowance money. As I prepared to move abroad with Grandma Lee, Mrs. Wilson whispered during our farewell in the garden, "You'd make such a wonderful daughter-in-law. Ivy, the Wilson home will always be yours." When asked about succession plans, I advised choosing Eric. Mrs. Wilson looked startled. "But you grew up with Evan." "Eric's steadiness serves better," I replied, swallowing the unspoken truth about ethical boundaries. The autumn breeze carried liberation as I walked home under streetlights, shadows dancing beneath my feet. 2 lifetimes had taught me the value of self-determination. My hands were clean, my health robust, Grandma's cheeks rosy. No more patched clothes or compromised dignity. Freedom smelled like crisp air and freshly inked passports. She had also moved into a bright big house early on. Now no one can touch my lychee orchard. Thinking of this, I happily spun around on tiptoe. "Ivy, you seem happy after leaving the Wilson family." A familiar voice reached my ears. I looked up to see Evan Wilson standing at the fork in the road. I schooled my expression. Yes. Evan took off his coat and draped it over me. You've always hated bulky clothes but been sensitive to cold since childhood. I pushed the coat back, stating flatly, "What do you want? That land from the Yu family. You used underhanded methods to take it. Didn't you?" Lin Yu was the girl who'd pursued him since their school days. Her family made their fortune selling medicinal herbs. And that particular plot contained rare, valuable botanicals. The birth control pills I'd taken back then had also been provided by Lin when she saw Evan feeling troubled. She'd sworn they wouldn't harm my body, that I could regain normal fertility 2 years after stopping them, even if Evan and I divorced. Evan never bothered verifying her claims. He assumed Lin's infatuation would prevent her from lying. Little did he know those pills contained carcinogens. Thank God for second chances, otherwise I'd have suffered even more in that lifetime. I arched an eyebrow. Come to lecture me? No. You did right. Those pills were cancerous. I failed you. When I remained silent, he continued, "We've both been reborn. You knew this already. Didn't you, Ivy? No need for pretense now. Anything else? So when you agreed to return to the Wilson family with me, it was all just using me?" I chuckled. "Didn't you teach me this yourself, Mr. Wilson?" Evan tilted his head back with a bitter smile. "I remember. That's why I've supported everything you've done this time. I've withdrawn from all business dealings. Thought if I avoided becoming that person from before, we might start over. But now you're turning into exactly what I became." I waved him off. "Your corruption last life had nothing to do with business. That darkness was always in you." "That's not true." Evan's rebuttal came through clenched teeth. He explained how after being brought to the Wilson family at age 10, his parents' initial kindness couldn't mask their preference for Eric Wilson, the son they'd raised from birth. The elite circle sneered at him. Eric ignored him. And gradually the pressure mounted. He swore to earn everyone's respect, living half his life trying to please others until our marriage. Media coverage of our childhood sweetheart romance revitalized the stagnant Wilson group, rebranding it as charitable and down-to-earth. For the first time, people looked at him the way they did Eric. But that hard-won validation made Evan trust no one. He sat alone that day, convinced everyone had ulterior motives. Every news segment about us stoked his hatred toward Grandmolly and me. We represented the village of his humiliations. Only by tormenting us could he ease his pain. After the old house collapsed, I survived but lost my right leg. 2 years after our low-profile divorce, Evan Wilson and Lin Yu entered into a secret marriage. It wasn't until the 5th year after Lin joined the Wilson family that their messy divorce over uneven asset distribution landed them in court. The full story of my divorce from Evan, including the birth control pills scandal, got sensationalized in media coverage. The Wilson family's reputation collapsed overnight. When the walls came crashing down, Evan's business plummeted and his accounting fraud was exposed. After Evan's imprisonment, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson took Eric Wilson abroad to their new company. That's when Evan finally realized he'd been abandoned again. The Wilson parents' insistence on him marrying me had merely been a publicity stunt to humanize their family image for the social media era. As for Evan's company, the financial books had been cooked since our wedding day. The Wilson elders hadn't actually lost control. Their whole powerless act was just theater to quietly build up Eric's overseas enterprise. Bringing Evan back into the family had only been insurance. A sacrificial lamb ready for future crises. People who survive decades in business always prepare for rainy days. If everything went smoothly, keeping an extra dependent around meant little. After all, Eric had always been their golden child since infancy. Whatever parental affection they'd felt for Evan had diluted over 10 years. Listening to Evan calmly recount the alternate reality from my Rebirth timeline, I finally understood why the Reborn version of him wanted to earn his own keep and stay with Grandmolly's family. My previous life's efforts had been nothing but a joke to them. "I used to look down on you for your Lishan village roots." I shrugged, feigning casualness. Turns out my own bloodline's even more tainted. Evan's lips curved with bitter humor. How did you come back anyway? I asked gossipily. His smile deepened. During my second year in prison, all the promises I'd made to you started haunting me daily, taking you to Lincoln Boulevard, celebrating every Christmas together, traveling when we could afford it, protecting you, starting a family. His voice trailed off as he lowered his gaze. Not a single one of those came true. He whispered hoarsely. When I woke up to Grandma carrying me to the county hospital, I realized I'd been reborn. I thought it was my chance to make things right. His throat worked. That day I saw you sneaking into the Wilson factory, searching for my mother. That's when I knew you'd return too. At first I couldn't figure out your motives. But watching you bury yourself in schoolwork, prioritizing money above all else, I realized you were doing to me what I'd done to you. A humorless chuckle escaped him. Though compared to me, you're still kinder. I exploited most of your life for wealth. You only took a fraction of my youth. Hearing about his karmic downfall in the previous timeline left me numb. Those were consequences of his own choices. I stated coldly. How his family treated him isn't my concern. Regardless of what became of him later, the harm he caused me remains real. If he'd remained successful with picture-perfect family wealth, would there be any remorse? I shook my head. Never. Nodding curtly, I moved to leave. Grandma's waiting. I need to finish packing. As I turned, Evan's hand shot out to grip my arm. Our eyes locked. Ivy Jiang, he rasped. Pupils dilated and bloodshot. The name hung between us like a suspended cord. I sneered. Tears. Mr. Wilson? I never knew you had any. Ivy. His voice fractured on the syllable. We stood frozen until his grip turned painful. Let go. I hissed. He released me instantly, sniffing hard as tears pooled like that 8-year-old boy's long ago. Striding to his car, he inhaled sharply. I'll drive you home. No need. I walked away without looking back. Get in, came his ragged plea. I brought you into the Wilsons' world. Let me at least take you out of it. The road reflected his hazard light's rhythmic pulse as his car crawled behind me, maintaining funeral procession distance until Grandma Lee's cottage lights appeared. Half an hour later, I arrived at the gates of the luxury villa I'd purchased for Grandma Lee. The hazard lights behind me flickered off. As I opened the wrought iron gate, the dull thud of a car door closing echoed behind me, followed by rapid footsteps. Before I could turn, Evan Wilson pulled me into his embrace, his face buried in my shoulder. He repeated hoarsely, "Don't go. I raised you. You can't abandon me. I've already paid for my sins in our past life. This whole time, I've been trying to make amends. Why won't you give me one chance? Ivy. I'm begging you, just one." His breathing grew labored. "I have no home now. Only you and Grandma ever truly cared." I didn't push him away, letting him clutch my jacket like a madman. When his ragged breathing finally steadied, I spoke calmly. "Evan, in our previous life, as you said, we used each other. What reason do I have to stay now?" He released me abruptly. Red-rimmed eyes met mine as he gasped for air. The panic attack mirroring my own that day years ago when he'd thrown contraceptive pills at me while insulting Grandma Lee. That time, he'd silenced my sobs by forcing himself on me before shoving bitter tablets down my throat, no longer bothering to hide powdered doses in my food. My palm cupped his damp cheek, and hope flickered in his devastated gaze. "Stop crying, Evan. You look ridiculous like this." Returning home, I stripped off the jacket stained with his tears and tossed it in the trash. At dawn, I escorted Grandma Lee to the airport. While waiting in the VIP lounge, Evan reappeared at the entrance, waving at Grandma, unaware of his later transgressions. She lamented our failed romance during their farewell. His eyes kept darting to me, always flinching away when our gazes met. With Grandma present, he maintained decorum, no tears or outbursts. Just a polite nod as we boarded. 20 flight hours later, our new life began. After settling in, I reviewed documents in my study when Grandma brought fruit. She produced a black card with a smile. Evan slipped this to me secretly. He was afraid you'd refuse it. Tossing the card aside, I chuckled. Why would I reject free money? He worries too much. You little opportunist. She teased, tapping my nose. That night after tucking Grandma in, I scanned the card's balance 3 times. Passers-by might have heard me muttering, "Mom goes to buy candy daily. I'm waiting to go home with her." The astronomical figure confirmed Evan's current wealth surpassed even mine. I accepted the windfall without guilt, shutting my laptop to sleep soundly. The dream came vividly that winter after Evan's adoption, when 10-year-old me raced to the city hospital with scavenged coins and neighbors' donations. Security guards shoved my filthy, child-sized frame away until 14-year-old Evan emerged from the crowd. Freshly laundered and citrus-scented, he paid Grandma's medical bills in full. After Grandma Lee's funeral, he wiped grime from my cheeks whispering, "Come home with me, Ivy. I'll protect you now." That year marked his final months of innocence, a clear-eyed 12-year-old shielding his 10-year-old shadow. 5 winters passed since my departure. News eventually came that Evan had vanished from the Wilson family. My finger hovered over a business associate's blog post today, a video caption asking frowny face, "Isn't this the Wilson family's second son?" LOL. The grainy footage showed a familiar figure dumpster diving behind a convenience store. In the video, a homeless man dressed in ragged clothes but with a clean face leans against an oak tree adorned with Christmas lights, munching on a tomato. Whenever someone passes by, he shouts toward the mansion across the street, "Honey, I'll come right back after finishing this tomato." My gaze falls on the lower left corner of the screen. The geotag reads Winnetka Lincoln Avenue.